The shipyard of Outpost Meridian hummed with the usual chaos of a frontier station. Cargo haulers bellowed orders in 6 different languages. Fusion welders sparked against titanium hulls, and the acrid smell of coolant mixed with the metallic tang of recycled air. Dara Flint wiped grease from her hands onto her already stained coveralls and squinted at the plasma coupling she'd been wrestling with for the past 3 hours. "Stubborn piece of junk," she muttered, giving the wrench one more aggressive twist. The coupling finally clicked into place, and Dara allowed herself a satisfied grin. 30 years of fixing broken ships had taught her that patience and profanity worked equally well as problem-solving tools. She was packing up her toolkit when she heard a sound so faint she almost missed it beneath the shipyard's din. A whimper. Soft, broken, and utterly out of place. Dara froze, her mechanic's instincts flaring. Something alive was nearby, and it was hurt. She followed the sound past the landing struts of a Valkorian freighter, through a gap in the storage containers, until she found herself in the shadowed corner, where the station's waste compactors hummed ominously. There, huddled against the cold metal wall, was the smallest dragon hatchling Dara had ever seen. The creature was no bigger than a house cat, her scales a dull, ashen gray that spoke of malnutrition and neglect. Her wings were folded tight against her trembling body, and her eyes, large, luminous, and far too knowing, stared up at Dara with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "Nobody wants me," the hatchling whispered, her voice a thin thread of telepathic sound that pierced directly into Dara's mind. Dara's heart clenched. She'd heard stories about dragon hatchlings, how the Draconis Empire prized their young, how each one was supposed to be bonded to a warrior family, how they were considered sacred. But she'd also heard the darker rumors. Hatchlings born without proper coloration, without the fierce fire that marked a true dragon, were sometimes discarded. "Hey there, little one," Dara said softly, crouching down to make herself less threatening. "What's your name?" The hatchling's eyes widened, as if the question itself was a shock. "Kevi," she whispered. They said I'm defective. My fire is too small. My scales are wrong. Nobody wants me." Dara felt anger flare hot in her chest, not at the hatchling, but at whatever cold-hearted bastards had thrown away a child like she was broken machinery. The mechanic in her saw something different, though. She saw a creature that just needed the right adjustments, the proper care, a chance to prove what she could become. "Well, Kevi," Dara said, extending her calloused hand slowly. "I'm Dara Flint, and I think you're exactly what I've been looking for." Kevi stared at the offered hand for a long moment, her small body shaking. Then, with a tentative movement that spoke of a lifetime of rejection, she pressed her snout against Dara's palm. The touch was warm, and Dara felt something click into place, not mechanical, but profound nonetheless. "Come on," Dara said, scooping the hatchling up carefully. Kevi weighed almost nothing, her body far too light for her size. "Let's get you home and fed. You look like you haven't eaten in days." As Dara carried Kevi through the shipyard, she could feel the stares. A human carrying a dragon hatchling was unusual enough, but the whispers followed them like a wake. Dara ignored them all. She'd spent her entire life fixing things other people had given up on. One more shouldn't make a difference. Her quarters were small, a converted cargo container she'd modified over the years with salvaged parts and stubborn determination. It wasn't much, but it was warm, functional, and most importantly, it was safe. Dara set Kevi down on her bunk and rummaged through her food stores. Dragons were carnivores. She knew that much. But what did a malnourished hatchling need? She settled on some protein bars and a canteen of water, offering them carefully. Kevi ate slowly at first. Then, with increasing hunger, her small claws clutching the food like it might disappear. When she finished, she looked up at Dara with those enormous eyes, and for the first time, Dara saw something other than fear in them. "Why?" Kevi asked telepathically. "Why would you take me? Humans and dragons. We're not supposed to." "Supposed to what?" Dara interrupted, settling down on the floor beside her bunk. "Look, kid, I've spent my whole life being told what I'm supposed to do. Supposed to stay on Earth. Supposed to marry some nice guy and have babies. Supposed to be afraid of the big, scary universe. She grinned. I've never been good at supposed to. Kevy's tail twitched, the first sign of something like amusement. The Empire will be angry. They don't like when their rejects are taken by others. Let them be angry, Dara said with a shrug. I've dealt with worse than angry bureaucrats. Besides, you're not a reject. You're just a dragon who hasn't found her fire yet. Over the following weeks, Dara learned that Kevy's telepathy was remarkably strong, even if her physical flames were weak. The hatchling could sense mechanical problems in ships before diagnostic tools caught them, could communicate with station AI systems in ways that baffled the tech specialists, and had an intuitive understanding of energy flows that bordered on supernatural. Dara began bringing Kevy to her repair jobs. At first, the other mechanics laughed a human, with a defective dragon as an assistant, but the laughter stopped when Kevy diagnosed a critical reactor flaw that would have killed everyone on a passenger liner. It stopped when she guided Dara's hands to fix a quantum drive that 3 expert engineers had declared unsalvageable. Word spread. The human mechanic and her dragon, an impossible pair. One evening, as Dara worked on a particularly stubborn engine core, Kevy perched on her shoulder and whispered, I'm not defective, am I? Dara paused, setting down her tools. She reached up and gently scratched under Kevy's chin, feeling the small dragon lean into the touch. No, Kevy, you were never defective. You were just different. And different isn't broken, it's just waiting for someone who knows how to see what you really are. Kevy's scales shimmered, and for the first time since Dara had found her, they began to show the faintest hint of color. Not the traditional gold or crimson of warrior dragons, but a deep, iridescent blue that seemed to pulse with inner light. Thank you, Kevy whispered, for wanting me. Dara smiled, returning to her work. Thank you for letting me. In the cold vastness of space, where empires rose and fell, where species judged each other by ancient prejudices and rigid traditions, a human mechanic and a dragon hatchling proved something fundamental. That family isn't about what you're supposed to be. It's about who chooses to see you for what you are.